Welcome everybody to the Breakthrough Leadership Studio. Here I am, Matt DeYoung, and I'm with Greg Yates. How are you, Greg?
Absolutely fantastic.
Good. So this is a video that we're shooting about 5 steps to hiring better leaders at your company. And that is a very, very big topic, and it's a big promise that we're making. But I hope, Greg, what we can do today is just kind of have a conversation about some things that we've talked about that have to do with better hiring.
Yeah, being able to surround yourself with the right people, not only is that a daily prayer for me, Matt, but it is absolutely critical to success in business.
Yeah, so I think one way that I got inspired about this and encouraged was when we went to the Willow Creek Global Leadership Summit, and Patrick Lencioni was there, and he had talking about one of his new books, and he had a brilliant framework in one of his books where he said, look, if you're going to hire people, they need to be hungry, and they need to be humble, and they need to be smart.
What a great combination.
It's so great.
It's fantastic.
And it's like, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that?
But how do you do that, Matt?
How do you do that? Exactly. So actually I was having a conversation afterwards with a friend of mine, and they had done some hiring, and the hiring that they did wasn't quite on point, and they wound up parting ways. And he just said, it's really great. We're having this conversation between the staff, and when somebody comes in, each person kind of takes a different component, hungry, and then the other person comes in, they talk about smart, and the other person talks about humble, and they all try to find it. And I just said, well, but why doesn't it work, or why does it work? And then that's where it kind of fell apart. It's like, we're not really sure. So I thought we could talk today about, why does it work? Why does this isn't a criticism of Patrick's framework, hungry, humble, smart. It's great, it's fantastic. But the question is, what's under the hood of that engine where we could have some transferable skills?
Yeah, how would you know? How would you know? I mean, humility can be false. Admittedly, we've all seen false humility, and we've all seen people who, in the term of that interview, can appear to be pretty smart, right?
Right.
And as far as hungry goes, well, I've never interviewed anybody who didn't proclaim that they were willing to go clean the toilet if that's what we wanted them to do. I mean, they were hungry. So how would we really know?
And they needed a job.
They needed a job.
So, there you go. So we wanted today to just take it a little bit further, and I think one of the things that's interesting though is to make very clear is that breakthrough leadership is not just about how to do leadership better, but how to become the leader you were created to be. And for us, the way that we look at it is that's very much born in becoming who God designed you to be, and implementing biblical principles. So we have been talking about a verse that might apply to this.
Yeah, that's critical. You talking about Proverbs 15:22?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got it?
That's the one.
Plans fail for lack of counsel. I don't think they're talking about your attorney.
No.
Okay. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. Interesting.
It is interesting. But, and I have to do a but here. Yeah, but you probably don't want more advisors, do you?
Yeah, Matt, I've been down this road where I have literally said this sentence: I don't need another advisor.
Right.
Now, why was I saying that? Why would I say that? It's because I didn't surround myself with the right advisors.
Right.
Okay, so has it ever been Friday night? Have you ever been in that Friday night situation? Everybody's leaving for the weekend after they managed to drop off all their advice on you so that you could figure out the solution, right? Because they're completely, my favorite word, unencumbered.
Yeah.
They're completely unencumbered with any need or requirement to actually resolve the issue. But they're happy to give you their advice, right? So tell me, Matt, what's the difference here in what the Scripture's trying to talk about?
Well, that's what we're going to kind of look at, I think, and say, if you were to surround yourself with the right advisors and not implement plans that lack the right counsel, what would that look like? What would you have to watch for? And here is, I think, where the rubber meets the road, Greg, where people are saying, you should do this or have this hiring system or look for this or look for that. There might be something kind of subterranean, and we've kind of mapped out five steps. So let's just name them off real quick.
Yeah. Well, the first one is look at their values.
Yeah.
Look at their values. Second one, I gotta look at my list. Uncover their beliefs, and you know how I feel about that one. Test the timing, number 3. And number 4, support. Are you going to be able to give them the support that's needed? And then number 5 is, are they self-leaders? Or are they just looking to follow somebody else who's a leader?
So let's unpack those, because again, you maybe have heard different versions of this over time, and you said, of course I want to hire people that can lead themselves, and of course I want to hire people with the right character and values and all the right belief system. But I do think that there's a stepwise system to navigate through. So when we look at values, the first thing we talked about is look at their values. Here's something that's very surprising to me. There's not time taken when we talk to someone to say, okay, we're already over here on this mission. So with you and I, we're on this mission to create breakthrough leaders. Now, someone else may have an entirely different idea about how to do leadership, and that's fine. But when we say, well, what do you value versus what we value, and try to mesh them, mesh them together, right? That doesn't really work. But how could you know what someone values in advance? Do you have any ideas about that?
Well, I do, and I think there's a series of questions that can be asked. I'm sure we'll get to those probably in another session, but I think there's a series of questions that can readily be asked to help identify people's values. But as you know, one of the images that I have when I start talking about identifying values is this whole idea of winds aloft, and when you're flying, the fact that at different altitude levels there are different currents and different speeds of the wind. And in fact, they can really be amazingly different directionally. In other words, as a pilot, I can call in and find out what the winds aloft are, 3,000, 6,000, 9,000, 12,000, and I might find that at 15,000, the winds are going my way. And they're going my way at a pretty good speed. Now, why would I fly at 8,000 if I can pick an altitude where they're going my way? Unfortunately, as a leader, I'm speaking a little bit from failure in this area, because those are the things that have taught me, is that too often I thought I was the guy who was supposed to provide that current, so that they would be drafting with me along that current, as opposed to identifying what those winds aloft were inside the person that I was interviewing or trying to work with or develop, mentor even, on my team. If I don't understand what direction they're going and at what speed they're going, then I don't understand their values. I don't understand what's important to them. And I just think that's a fantastic visual. I got an example, though, of somebody who I didn't understand their values. I eventually did, but picture this. You probably know this person. Not specifically, but you probably know somebody just like him. I'd hired a lady who was a great leader in our organization. And she was single, and she had a dog. She loved that dog. If you were going to look at Facebook or look at anything, man, look on her desk. There's pictures of her and her dog. There are dogs everywhere. This dog is legendary. Every day at lunch, she went home to get the dog out of its crate and give it a chance to move around. And what I'd failed to understand was what would happen when the team mission came in contact with her obligations to her dog. Because even as simple as this sounds, we're not talking about, we're not talking about things that are like people are criminals versus, preachers. We're talking about values that people hold on to in their lives that are important. And until we realized that it was important for us to calculate how to make sure she could take care of her dog, there was stress that came into play every time we got near quitting time and we weren't done. It was stressful, and we didn't understand why. It was her dog. And it could be children, it could be so many different things. Just one little example of how what was valued conflicted with the team.
What does value mean? It means an area you want to invest in. And there's already, what I like to say is, what's the evidence in someone's life of where they've already invested in? And there's a lot of research on this. There's a great book by Daniel, I forgot his last name now, but it's called, Daniel Pink. It's called Drive, and it talks about how you can pay people only so much, but after that, the real values start to kick in. And interestingly, it was about 6 figures, about $100,000. After that, bonuses and so on and so forth really became a teeter-tottering set of values. Well, I'd like to make more money, but I'm also not spending that time with my family. Marissa Mayer from Yahoo had said some great statements about high growth companies in tech, like Google and Yahoo, where she had worked. She said, when it's not that people mind working a lot of hours, but when those hours take away from what they value, say seeing their kid's soccer game or just being able to do basic chores at home, that then they became stressed out, right? And then the sabotage started kicking in. It could be something as simple as a dog, or it could be a salesperson who's in a situation where they don't value money in quite the right ways that they would need to perform their task, or whatever the case may be. But the first question is, what do they value?
What do they value? And it's not a one size fits all.
Right.
Yeah, everybody's different. Everybody's unique in this. One of the things, I know we got to move on. One of the things I love about this is that's the way God treats us too, Matt.
Yeah.
It's the way he treats us too.
Yeah.
It's not one size fits all. He relates to us individually and specifically because he cares about us.
And he gets joy out of that. He created
right.
us uniquely, and he loves doing that.
And if we're going to do the same with our leaders, that's where it begins. Let's talk about the next one.
It's a great model. So the next one is about uncovering their beliefs. And this one, a little disclosure here, we're not going to be able to dig in as deep as we'd like to. But, beliefs for me is really a flow of what are they currently doing, or what's the history of what a team member might be doing or a leader might be doing, and what's their language about. So beliefs, what they really truly believe, not what they say they believe when they're in the interview trying to get it right.
Exactly.
It's what they really believe. What have you found out about beliefs in hiring?
You know that I've written to this a little bit, and I believe that we'll probably put out there one of these days 17 questions to help establish what anybody believes. I think it's a powerful process. Right. I love that. But uncovering beliefs, I used to believe, I had bought into this idea that there was no way. It's just a crapshoot. You're going to spend 6 months figuring out what somebody believes, and then you're going to know if you've wasted your time or not. I had just given up on the intentional procedure of figuring out what people's beliefs were. Then it hit me one day with my wife, just listening. Vicki, we've been married 37 years, right? You'd think I'd have all this down. But what I have learned, not always everything she thinks or all of her opinions, but I have learned this. If there's about a 3-second gap in her response, I know whatever she says is being couched, and it's probably not 100% what she believes.
Right.
Now, what is that telling you? I mean, that really tells me is that sometimes I don't listen well enough. I'm too busy putting out my beliefs, my directions, to even in an interview, to listen to the hesitancy, to listen to the inflection, to listen to and ask and really understand what people believe. And if I don't understand what they believe, then I have no idea. Because this isn't about competency, Matt. This isn't about competency. It's about character. It's about belief. It's about where we're going to find out later that we're going different directions, and we just haven't figured it out yet. It's a powerful
That's a good
thing.
point. And people might feel like some of these points that we're making about values and beliefs, and the other ones we're going to say in a second, are very soft. They're not hard and tactical. But yet that's not how I see it, because when I was doing a training with a woman in sales, long story short, I told you the longer version of this story, but halfway through, or not, maybe even a day in of a week-long training, she admitted, I really feel like the way that you guys sell is manipulative. And we were teaching her how to sort of talk to people to see if they were really interested and get on to a better customer, and she felt that was manipulative. And I really disagree, because there wasn't anything unethical, but I can tell you what, in the second week when she went live and went ahead and started doing sales, it didn't work out, and it wasn't but 2 weeks. And so that kicked in, that she had a belief that sort of got in the way. And speaking of sabotage, I think we're going to come up on this third point, which is testing the timing. Is the timing right?
Right.
So what do we mean when we say testing the timing?
Well, obviously, we've probably all had people who we thought had the competency, the capabilities, their resume looked great, and yet for whatever reason, at this point in their lives, maybe they would have been a great employee, or maybe they will be a great employee, but there's something going on in their lives that makes them incompatible right now with the mission, the team, and the belief system that's required to be successful.
Yeah. And I think where this gets really difficult in my experience is when you have, let's say, a checklist of 10 things. There's really 10 things someone would need to value and believe and be capable of. in order to fill a role. But at the moment, this moment in time, when you're having a conversation with them, it's only 9 out of 10. So we go, let's just look past that 10th one and go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
But then this nasty thing that we have to bring into the light comes into effect, which is a belief that we have as leaders that how long is it until this person creates sabotage for me?
Man.
Are you familiar with that?
Totally familiar. But one thing I think we need to point out here, Matt, is that you'd have to actually start out with that list.
Right.
To even identify it yourself, which is another portion of this identifying values and beliefs mandate for effective hiring.
Right.
And again, it's another entire technique that you've got to dig into. I mean, I hope we can share more about that as we go along. But the reality is, if you don't ask and answer, even if it's internally in your own mind, if you don't assess the qualifications, the beliefs that would be required for success, does that make sense?
Yep.
If people don't possess or aren't willing to modulate to possessing the beliefs required to succeed, they will fail. Because the framework...
This goes right back to the winds of loft. You want to get with the winds that work to your advantage, which is their values, their beliefs, the timing, instead of trying to make it work.
Yeah. Now, and Matt, we're not talking about saying, oh, we just abandon these people, there's no hope for them if they're 10 degrees off. We're not necessarily saying that. But you have to go in eyes wide open. And we don't. I mean, we don't go in eyes wide open. We have to go in there knowing, wait a minute, am I looking for a reclamation project right now? Or am I trying to find and value the person, the people that I want to be surrounded with? Environmental breakthrough is a big, big part of breakthrough in the corporate world, in business success, in leadership success. And if we aren't surrounding ourselves by those people, so that doesn't mean that we come in and find 5 people who all need our mentorship, even though we are going to mentor them. That's not the goal, right? The goal is, how do we surround ourselves and find the people whose draft is going the same direction we are?
Because I feel it's unfair to expect of other people something they cannot or won't do.
Absolutely.
So now it flips back to the leader. We've been talking a lot about evaluating others as they come in, but now we're going to flip it to being about the leader. And so one of the things that happens is I've seen this happen where you have a startup and you have a large corporation. A lot of times large corporations have training systems in place where they can take someone who's willing to be a part of the mission and willing to line up. And then you have startups and they say, well, I'll just train them. And I've noticed that it's a common mistake with startups where they don't have the proper support. And that's our next point, is about support. So they think they're going to train them rather than hiring somebody who's ready to go.
Right.
But they can't, and we don't provide support. So tell me about what we need to do to support our guys more.
This is a huge, huge and painful issue, Matt, because it's kind of like where the Bible says, consider the cost of building a tower, before you just start building, and then you can't finish, you can't afford to finish, or you're not. I have a very vivid and painful memory of literally hiring a guy from clear across the country, moving him to our facility, and the reason he was so excited to come was because he wanted to be mentored by me. He could just envision and taste what was going to happen. We were going to hang out together. We were going to go conquer the world together, because that was part of what I was selling. It's part of what I was so excited about, was the potential that could exist working together.